Recording in progress. It's such a wonderful thing to remember that I've actually clicked the button. Welcome to another experiment in writing. I think this is 12. Let me check. So I have the technology. It's slow. Yeah, 12. Okay, today's subject is something I'm guilty of, and that's why I want to talk about it. Make sure I get it in my head. Overwriting. And I've written about a particular aspect of overwriting in several blog posts. Look up Toing and Froing and you'll see all of them. Anyway, and I'm going from notes here. By the way, listening to David Gray. Impressive. Toing and froing and overwriting occur when you're writing the story or developing the story. Usually it happens in the first draft, rough draft stage. At least that's the way it is for me. And you're writing, but the story's not really going anywhere. It's not moving along. If you saw this in a book, you'd probably want to skim it as being worthless information. However, you can turn that worthless information and what's happening into a learning situation, which is what I like to do. Whenever I screw up, I like to learn from it. First thing, keep writing, okay? Because as long as you have something down on the page, you can fix it later. All righty, good. Editing is easier than creating. It's easier to fix what's already been done than to get it right the first time. I could tell you a really interesting and amusing anecdote about that from my days in corporate America. Anyway, what you need to do to stop toing and froing is get to the story. Just get to what's happening. And the example I'm going to use is Fane's Eye, chapter 6, On a Town. It's entitled On the Town. Now, the chapter is about the protagonist, Stacy Knox, and her brother, Tom Knox. She's picking him up at what used to be Naval Station, New York. It's been closed and repurposed. But this is happening back in the 1990, 1991 timeframe, so it was active. He's a Commodore, a commander, I should say, in the Navy, U.S. Navy. Anyway, she's picking him up to take him back to her farm that she's just basically purchased. Now, the thing is, I knew this chapter. I had in my head, I had already kind of like pre-written the chapter before I actually sat down and began typing. And in my head, they were in the car travel. Nothing else. They were in the car traveling. It had already been established. Yep, we're going forward. We're moving along. Literally, the car moving along is the metaphor to the reader that we're traveling. We're in the chapter. We're going someplace. It's going. We're getting somewhere in the story. However, that's not what I wrote originally. Here's what I wrote originally. Tom Knox stood outside the admin building facing the parking lot, his duffel bag in his right hand and a backpack over his shoulder. He switched the duffel to his left hand and saluted his sister when she flashed her lights at him and pulled out of her parking space. He gawked at her creamsicle-colored F-150 pickup, complete with trailer hitch, then saluted. The passenger window came down as she stopped in front of him. Ha ha, look at my big brother, all spiffy in his sailor dude clothes. Frank Sinatra, that's her cat, stood on the passenger seat, placed his paws on the window frame, stared cross-eyed at Tom and sniffed. He let Frank sniff his hand, then petted him and rubbed his ears. Frank purred and moved to Stacy's lap. Ah, you're approved of. He doesn't give up his seat for anybody. Tom tossed his gear in the bed and got in. When did you get a cat? When did you get a truck? You're not going all Ellie Mae on me, are you, sis? Stacy snorted. Frank moved to Tom's lap, cushed, lay down, and fell asleep. If I'm Ellie Mae, does that make you Jethro? They were cousins, not siblings. He stroked Frank's fur and was rewarded with a purr louder than the cab's AC. Care to explain this shift in careers? The truck, the cat? Your hair's the same as I remember. Haven't seen you in a sweatshirt since I went to the academy. Nice information, but everything that's in there has been mentioned previously, except for the creamsicle F-150, because I was really trying to figure out what I was doing. But anyway, color of her truck's not that important to the story, so why put it in? If it's not relevant, let the reader come up with a color he or she likes. So I was basically rehashing a lot of information the reader already had, which was not a good thing to do unless you need to really emphasize to make sure, hit the reader over the head. Don't be subtle. Make sure they got it. But I didn't like it. I knew I was toing and froing. I was busy trying to get things to happen, looking around, Okay. So here's how I rewrote it. Tom stroked Frank Sinatra's fur as Stacy exited the shipyard's main gate. She glanced over and chuckled. You're approved of. He doesn't give up his seat for anybody. Frank cushed Tom's lap and fell asleep. His purrs almost as loud as the F-150's AC. When did you get a cat? When did you get a truck? When did you get a farm? Feel free to answer in any order you'd like. Okay? Everything that had been in the previous reading was already established, so that's all you really needed. Stacy had already told people in Accra she was going to get her brother. Boom. Had already hinted that we already learned that Tom was in the Navy. Boom. We knew that he was at the shipyard. Boom. Frank Sinatra doesn't give up his seat. Good. Okay. He purrs very loudly when he's happy. When did you get a cat? When did you get a truck? When did you get a farm? Feel free to answer in any order you'd like. Ding. You're right into it. You are now into the meat of the story very quickly. That one chapter, very condensed from what I had written before, gets the reader to the point where they're going to begin getting answers about what's going on with Stacy. They know she was a big level attorney. How come she's doing this? So that is an example of overwriting, toing and froing, putting more in than is necessary to get the story going, versus getting it down, to what is really required to keep the reader active and engaged. If you do have any questions, write them in the comments. If you don't have any questions, leave a comment anyway. I'm lonely. Take care. He looks for the stop button. It's over there. Good. Okay, ready?